Time for a quick Larian Studios update. Now that we are, believe it or not, a year and almost 2 months after Baldur's Gate 3's release. No crazy news or anything specific today, so feel free to leave the video right now if that's what you want to do. Don't complain in the comments, I told you. But there was a recent interview that Games Radar held with Sven Vinke, the owner and creative director of Larian Studios, and after reading this, the hype meters only continue to rise, folks. I'll leave a link to that article down below. Correction, Games Radar reported on PC Gamer, who did the interview, and I'm going to report on both of them. Because, yeah, journalism. As most of you should already be aware, Larian announced to us a while back that they're not going to be making Baldur's Gate 4. We do know that Hasbro is shopping around trying to find a potential partner for a BG4 one day, but that's a topic for another day. But Larian is also not making any DLCs for BG3. Instead, the studio is going to be focusing on creating 2 new RPGs. Very exciting, but rather old news at this point. But Sven had a few things to say on working on 2 RPGs. We had some people who were dedicated to the other one, and they just got swallowed by the ambitions of the one that we want to release first. So we will try to do it concurrently, but we have to figure out how to leave people alone. So Larian's being a bit open here about the struggles of working on 2 games at once. But what was noteworthy here to me was hearing that the devs are getting swallowed by the ambitions of the one that they want to release first. And to me, that sounds like Larian has something really going on here. And, you know, the train, fuck, what was my line? I had a good line right here. Larian has something going on here, and the train is starting to chug at you. The train is starting to pick up speed at Larian Studios, which is, of course, good news. Let's hope they don't stretch the resources too thin, though. Back to the article. We always say we do want to rein in our ambitions, but then we start thinking, and the machine is meant to make large games. We were made for making large, ambitious RPGs and to try new stuff. One of the core problems, it's not really a problem, but one of the core problems to do what you're suggesting is that we actually know what we want from our gameplay systems, how to evolve them, how to do new things, and they're all big. I think it's safe to say, after hearing this, that likely both of Larian's upcoming games will be quite big, as Larian seems to only be capable of thinking in big terms. The great thing about Larian using the word big here is that unlike many other studios where big is really just kind of like a selling word, you know, a PR term that in reality means a mile wide and a puddle deep. When Larian says big, think of a mile wide and 2 miles deep. If you could walk from the beach in Act 1 all the way to the House of Grief Act 3 waypoint, it's fairly big, but when you realize that every single house and building on these maps can be explored, many of which have real secrets and side quests and unique items, hidden entrances to entirely new maps, and the list goes on, the term big starts to take on a new, much more meaningful definition when it's coming out of Larian's mouth. So the more I hear Larian talking about what they're working on, the more I believe that this is once again what we have to look forward to with their next 2 projects. As someone who personally loves large, deep, fairly complex RPGs that I can lose myself in for potentially years of my life, not in-game years, but you guys get what I'm saying. This is music to my ears, and it means a hell of a lot more hearing all of this out of Sven than hearing it out of, you know, an Ubisoft executive, for example. But it's not even just hearing Larian say, you know, the words big and ambitious that gets me excited. It's also hearing that Larian is looking to try new stuff. If we look at Larian's 3 previous games, actually their entire history, to be honest, it's really clear that Larian knows how to innovate on their previous works. If you look at all of their games, like game to game to game to game, for almost all of them, you just see these huge improvements and innovations in the games. And this is Larian. This is their resume. So I wouldn't expect, you know, a Baldur's Gate 3 like clone set in a different world and setting, although to be perfectly honest, that does sound amazing too. I would expect at least one of these 2 games to feel very, very Larian, as in sandboxy RPG world where environmental agency and manipulation are the focus and world reactivity is huge. But I'm also expecting to be seeing a few surprises here that will make this next game feel quite unique. All right, now I'm done going over the recent article. That's really all that's technically new here, but I am going to quickly touch upon a few things that Larian has said in the past about what they're doing here. I think these are important to remember. Well, back in April, in a community update letter, Sven said on the topic of Larian's future games, "It's still early days. We'll tell you more about those later down the line. But know that even as our focus turns to these new games, the sensibilities that brought you Baldur's Gate 3 are alive and well here here at the Larian Castle. We're fueled by the very same fires in our bellies, one that drives us to create immersive experiences shaped by your choices, and we can't wait for you to join us on this next adventure. Sven also said in this update, I don't know if we're going to pull it off, but looking at our narrative, visual, and gameplay plans, I think what we're working on now will be our best work ever. I get excited like a kid watching the key imagery, want to show it to everyone now and grumble in frustration at having to wait until it's actually all working. Yes, it's hype, but it's hype because it really looks and feels good. So Sven is certainly setting expectations high here, which in the long run could potentially hurt these future games, their reception a little bit, as, you know, us fans, you know, set our expectations at the very least on the level of Baldur's Gate 3, and we got to be realistic here. Creating a game on Baldur's Gate 3's level is just not easy at all. But I will say, though, I do have faith in Larian, and it's actually really refreshing to hear Sven say things like, I don't know if we're going to pull it off. Larian is really good at the relatability factor, you know, not coming across as corporate or manufactured. Other companies could certainly learn from Larian in this department because it makes them a lot more likable. And to end the video, I'll just say that Larian has a great foundation that they're working upon here. It seems like Larian treats their devs, especially their veteran devs, as folks who can really help take the company to the next level. Valuable people that have knowledge and skills that have been honed over the years for Larian Studios work, and they don't ever want to get rid of that if they don't have to. While with a lot of other companies, it seems like, you know, a lot of the veteran devs might be paychecks that are now becoming too high that can ruin quarterly profits before a game even comes out. That doesn't seem to be how Larian views this, you know, from a business perspective. So Larian has a really good foundation of knowledgeable, really good devs, and they are attracting more and more high quality devs to their company. Working for Larian right now is like, you know, working for the rock stars of the industry. It's probably a pretty big deal for a game dev after the success of Baldur's Gate 3. So I think Larian is set up really good here. And then also we have to consider that Larian has their own engine that they developed and created, and they built the Divinity games on and innovated to make Baldur's Gate 3. That's theirs. They can mess with it, you know, they can adapt to things, they can innovate with it. They don't have to rely on another company to make changes, etc. I think that's also going to work in Larian's favor. And then Larian probably has several veteran devs that were there at the foundation, the creation of this engine, and they just know it in and out. And that's just extremely valuable. So yeah, not a ton of new news today, but it's really cool to hear Sven, you know, talk about ambitious, really big games that are going to be coming out. And, you know, it's just cool to hear Larian say stuff like that, because as of now, this is a company that most of us actually do trust. I'll keep you guys updated on all things Larian from here on out, and I'll just try to make sure to let you know in the beginning of a video if there's no like crazy news or anything like that, so you don't have to stick around unless you're waiting for like that big reveal. I'll try to make that clear. All right, catch you all in the next one. Thanks.